Hello, are we here? Can y'all hear
We
me?
made it. We made it.
Yes. Another week on StreamYard.
Woohoo. Learning curve. The learning curve is lowering.
Yes. I mean, in some ways it is. In other ways, new people are trying the tech part of it every week. Well, welcome to our Sunday gathering. I'm going to pull it up on my phone. It's like funny because even though I can see what's happening in here, I still feel like attached to another window. Oh, hold on just a second. Okay, let's see. Is anyone watching out there? Do people see us?
Trying to get us pulled up.
I can see it, but there's no one saying hello yet. So say hello. We need you. We depend on your comments. We're codependent. We're attached to them. We're enmeshed. It's not healthy, but we need them. Maybe it is healthy. Maybe we do need each other. Maybe that's what this is all about. Okay.
Stop preaching my sermon for me.
Whoops. Sorry. Oh, okay. Wait. But I want to do... I'm seriously just messing around right now with StreamYard. So let me just focus. There are people. Hello, Jet.
There are people.
Jet and Sean, James, Becca, David, Hillary, possibly. Hi, Sierra.
Sorry about that, Sierra. I was just texting her. Sorry.
We owe you some Cheez-Its. That's our choice here. Hi, Sarah. Good morning. So while people are signing on, I'm going to share some announcements at the same time. I'm going to try to put those announcements up on the screen. Oops. Okay. Fran, or I don't know, someone who is really good with computers and has access to our church email. Maybe you can throw some links into the comments for me because I literally cannot do all of this at once. But I do have one link. I do have one link handy, and it's the link to our guide. So let me add that. Comments. I'm doing everything in StreamYard. Hi, Anna and Audrey and Tiffany and Lee. Good to see everyone. I just put the link up for the guide, so feel free to, sorry, someone behind me is eating mini muffins. Okay, so feel free to, what'd you say, Fran?
I put the donation link.
Nice. Okay, so the guide is up, and I'm going to share a few announcements. The first one that I wanted to share, yes, is that you can donate to the work that goes on in this community, which is all funded by the community. There at Donor Box, the link is right there on the screen, and it's in the comments. So we appreciate anytime you can be generous in any level or way you can. We're so grateful for everyone who truly comes together and make this community able to function. I also wanted to let you all know that this Saturday is the first meeting for our writing cohort. You can check that out. Today's not Saturday. I know. Did I say it was Saturday? I'm also single parenting today, just FYI. But yeah, there is a writing cohort that you can sign up for. There's a link somewhere in our email. Okay, somewhere there's a link. Sign up, by the way, for our emails or DM us if you want to get on them to learn about what's happening every single week. But the first meeting for that cohort is this Saturday. We are going to meet on Zoom thanks to Omicron. Oh, Cozy, be quiet, please. I know, because I'm sharing an announcement. You don't understand. So yes, this coming Saturday, we will have that meeting. It will be on Zoom. However, most of the meetings will be in person. So it's designed to be an in-person meeting, and we hope that you will be able to come to all the meetings. There's 3 total. So go to that link to read more and sign up for the email list if you're interested. And then a week from today on Sunday, we're going to have our monthly in-person meeting at the Texas Hall. We will be requiring masks as usual, and especially now with everything going around, we want to be as safe as possible. So bring your mask. And of course, if you have any symptoms, at all, just stay home, because we do have a live stream. Or if you're, far away, you can watch from our live stream, because we'll still be streaming live on January 23rd. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to ask was that you grab your communion elements, so that you're ready for that. Share in the comments what you have. We always like to see what people have with them. And we're continuing on this morning in our winter preaching series, a collection of Epiphanies. This is a series we do every year this time of year, and it's really personal and special. So I'm excited to hear from Fran in a bit. But I'm going to pull us all out of the stream and let Fran get us into a centering moment as we enter this space together. Thanks, y'all, for being here.
Sorry, I have to fix my... I wasn't quick enough on the draw. I'm still learning. StreamYard, here we go.
Be brought into your circle today. I'm Tammy Fuller, and I am from Surprise, Arizona. And the link between you in Texas and me in Surprise, Arizona is that your Texas Rangers do their spring training right here in my city. So we are connected. I also work at a school from kinder through 8th grade. So I kind of understand you guys a little tiny bit. Okay. What I'm asking you to do is to trust me, because the students at my school, they love me because I'm an old lady guru. I'm a mystic. I'm inclusive, a little bit magical. So thanks for trusting me today. The message that I'm going to present to you is entitled The Magic of Loving Your Enemies. Okay, first we're going to have a little bit of a sacred circle moment. I have my candle. Can you see it? It says love always wins. And we're going to do a quick 15 to 20 second meditation. Grown-ups, you can join in too. We're going to put our hand over our heart, one on our tummy. We're going to breathe in and out, and we're going to be focusing on a people or persons. Okay, ready? Close your eyes, breathe in. I love myself. Breathe out. I love myself. Breathe in. I love my family and friends. Breathe out. I love my family and friends. Breathe in. I love my enemies. Breathe out. I love my enemies. Oh. That last part was a little bit difficult, right? It's kind of hard to love our enemies. But in our gospel readings today, we're told to sum up, love your enemies. In the Message Bible, it adds that our enemies bring out the best in us. So hold up. Our enemies can bring out the best in us? They sure can. It's a magic that God starts and we can finish. How cool is that? It's something to be celebrated. It's not easy, but it feels awesome when we get really good at it and when we get faster with it, and then we show others how to do it. So, for example, there's a magic trick that I learned. It's called the Cork Trick. And it's not something that my hands can do naturally. I remember getting it accidentally right when someone showed it to me. But years later, I forgot how to do it. So I went online and I found out how to do it again. So here's what's going to happen. I have a pink and I have a black cork. You see that? Okay. So they're right here in my hands. I'm going to get the pink cork. Sorry. I'm going to get the black cork to my right hand and my pink cork to my left hand. My fingers have to touch at all times. You cannot let go. All right. So here we go. Boop. Did it. Let's do it again. Boop. Did it. One more time. My fingers do not let go. If you try this at home, some of you are going to accidentally get it right. Some of you are going to get very frustrated. That's how loving our enemies is. Just like the magic cork trick, loving our enemies doesn't come naturally to everyone. We might feel like it's a magic we need to learn. We can learn by researching it on the internet, by reading, by accidentally just doing it. And we can share it with others. People stand in amazement at magic tricks. And when we're able to love our enemies, it's the same thing. People go, how do you do that? The key to learning it is that it all starts with Jesus. He shows us the way, then we can celebrate and continue to love our enemies. We see how it was taught and modeled by Jesus, just like I learned to do the cork trick. In the gospel stories today, we see how he loved his enemies and how we can love our enemies, love all people, ultimately by how he lived and died and by how we can live. Such lavish love. We can also research inspiring stories about forgiveness, profound love, scandalous love. Some of us love our enemies just by doing it very naturally because some of us have a gift that has been given by Christ to just love like that and forgive like that. Some of us have to learn by going to someone that we love and respect, someone in Christ, and just asking, how do you love your enemy? I'm really struggling with this. When we learn, we can show others right there where we're at, whether it's at home, maybe your siblings, at school, on the playground, our teams, and then we can lead by example. No matter the way we learn the discipline of loving our enemies, it starts with Jesus. Loving our enemies is a tool, it's a gift, and it's a magic worth sharing. Always something to celebrate. Sometimes, though, you need a little extra help. If you don't feel that you're loving your enemies, no worries. Your parents can give you tips and tricks about how not to be vengeful, how not to be gossipy and saying bad things about the person that is your enemy, how not to judge your enemies or condemn them, and definitely how to stop yourself from becoming more and more angry and bitter. Some of our enemies are people we need to stay away from totally. That's okay too. Your parents will help you with that too. The love that comes from the distance can actually be a good thing. The bottom line to conquering that aspect of loving our enemies, when we hit obstacles and we can't seem to love our enemies, is to, in verse 36, you're going to hear in today's gospel reading, to be merciful, just as God the Father, Mother is merciful. We're shown the trick of truly, deeply loving our enemies by being merciful, by leading by our example of mercy. And remember, this brings out the best in us. You, me, all of us. Now, there is a magician code. We shouldn't share how to do our magic tricks, right? But this beautiful magic of loving our enemies, we should be sharing these tips and tricks. because what it brings out in the best of us will be the best for all of the planet, for all of us. It's a deep magic that's going to change the planet when we love our enemies. Okay, coming back to our sacred circle. This week's challenge is to find, learn, and continue the magic of loving our enemies. It's not something that happens easily, but with a few tips and tricks, we can be shown the way, show others, and leave all of us in awe and wonder. That's really something to celebrate. Namaste, peace, kids. Have a beautiful week.
Amen. Thank you so much, Tammy. That was beautiful. I think I'm going to be thinking about that all day and all week for sure myself. Good morning, everybody. I'm Tracy Henneke, and I'm here to lead you in our communion today. And happy 2022. I don't know about you guys, but that is a crazy thing for me to say. I don't know what has happened to the last couple of years. I don't know when I'm going to process any of that, but I think it's definitely been a rough time. And, you know, we all have our own feelings about a new year or a new, I guess that's a calendar year, wherever you are. I do like the act of starting new, starting fresh, and just kind of taking pause and doing a fresh beginning. And, you know, I try to do this a couple times a year. I do this at the calendar year, although sometime in January, it's not usually the first day of the year. But I think I also do it around my birthday, which just so happens to be the middle of the year ish. So it's a good time to reset and refresh. I've had some practice in this, and I've learned a lot along the way, but I find that as most things in life, we continue to evolve. I do have this love-hate relationship with resolutions, with goals, even with intentions, or finding a word to meditate upon. I really love the idea of it, the idea of the fresh start and the looking towards something, but I tend to put unintentional pressure on myself. And I end up focusing on the wrong things. And so I found this to be true. I was in a conversation with some colleagues earlier this week, and we were processing kind of what we want to, who we want to be and how we want to show up in this world, and just kind of taking we have a new budget, a new goal cycle, and all of the things at work. And we were really discussing what that could look like. And one of my colleagues reminded me of, you know, we often say, I want to read so many books, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And I think that the focus tends to be away from why you want to do those things and just really accomplishing all of those things. So for me, if I choose, I want to read so many books this year, I don't know that I can remember the books because I'm just focusing on finishing things. And I think that's an important distinction that I'm coming to in this new year of 2022, that instead of celebrating what is come to the end, but to really focus on what is happening now, celebrate the small things, and celebrating the baby steps. And just like, you know, and Tammy's talking about loving your enemies, that's not a flip and easy thing that we're going to do and just look for tomorrow, and everything is going to be great. But there are steps that we can take along the way. And I think it's also important to really focus on what that means for you personally, as well, and how you are growing in that. And so I think celebrating the small things is something that I really want to do. And instead of focusing on finishing the books, maybe, you know, thinking about enjoying them instead. And if I don't like it, put it away. And really look at focusing on the why and the small things. Why do I read? Why do I do yoga? Why do I volunteer? Why do I create? And sometimes we really just need to open the book. We need to get on the yoga mat, process through why are we doing that? Sometimes we really just need to show up. And so that's the invitation we have today. We're here. We don't have to focus on being the best that we can be. The table is open wherever we are. So I invite you to come to the table, acknowledging we're not perfect. We aren't complete. We come just as we are. So I'm excited to be the first to lead you in our new liturgy for communion, written by our very own Aurelia, Fran, and Matthew. So please join me. God is within you. God is also within you. Lift up your hearts.
We join in the beloved community.
Let us give thanks for the blessing of life.
Together
we raise our
voices in gratitude.
Holy God, thank you for this time and this space. We come as we are. We celebrate the small things. We celebrate the daily evolving. Thank you for this space. I invite you to eat and to drink. Great is the mystery of faith. Christ has reimagined death, and we join him in bringing heaven to earth. Amen.
Part of our focus in worship today is that it's not enough to have knowledge of Christ in our head. We have to live it out with our heart. And that's what this song is about. And I invite you to sing along if you know it, or just hear the words and have it be a reflection for you. I open up to you this love that makes me new. Oh, may my heart receive this love that carries me from the head to the heart. You take me on a journey letting go and getting lost in you. From the head to the heart, you take me on a journey of letting go and getting lost in you. My heart is open wide, I will receive your light. You give me faith like a child. In you my heart runs wild. 'Cause there's no shame in looking like a fool when I give you what I can't keep and take a hold of you. Oh, there's no shame in looking like a fool when I give you what I can't keep and take a hold of you. More than words, more than good ideas, I found your love in the open fields. More than words, more than good ideas, I found your love in the open fields. More than words, more than good ideas. I found your love in the open fields. More than words, more than good ideas. I found your love in the open fields. 'Cause there's no shame in looking like a fool when I give you what I can't keep and take a hold of you. Oh, there's no shame in looking like a fool when I give you what I can't keep and take a hold of you. From the head to the heart, you take me on a journey of letting go and getting lost in you.
Wow, I have to follow that. Oh my gosh, that was great. I feel like I'm about to have some story time sitting in my big brown chair, and I have my book. So gather around, adults. I'll be reading John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. 3 days later, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, was there. Jesus and his disciples had likewise been invited to the celebration. At a certain point, the wine ran out, and Jesus' mother told him, "They have no wine." Jesus replied, "Mother, what does that have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." She instructed those waiting on tables, "Do whatever he tells you." As prescribed for Jewish ceremonial washings, there were 6 stone water jars on hand, each one holding between 15 and 25 gallons. "Fill those jars with water," Jesus said, and the servers filled them to the brim. "Now," said Jesus, "draw some out and take it to the caterer." They did as they were instructed. The caterer tasted the water, which had been turned into wine, without knowing where it had come from. The only ones who knew were those who were waiting on tables, since they had drawn the water. The caterer called the bride and groom over and remarked, "People usually serve the best wine first. Then, when the guests have been drinking a while, the lesser vintage is served. What you've done is to keep the best wine until now." Jesus performed the first of the signs at Cana in Galilee. In this way, he revealed his glory, and the disciples believed in him. We hear the voice of God through these words. Thanks be to God.
Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 44. But I say to you that hear, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you and pray for those that abuse you. To him who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from him who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you. And of him who takes away your goods, do not ask them again. And as you wish that men would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to even the ungrateful and the selfish. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. He also told them a parable. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above his teacher, but every one of you is fully taught will be like his teacher. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, brother, let me take that speck out that is in your eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck that is in your brother's eye. For no good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For figs are not gathered from thorns, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. We hear the voice of God through these words. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. We had two kind of heavy-hitting gospel texts this morning. The first from John 2 that Heather read is from the lectionary for this week. And I included it, not because it really has a lot to do with my sermon, but because I love it so much. I love it so much because Jesus starts his earthly, embodied ministry on earth by way of celebration, by way of facilitating celebration. And I think that that is a pretty profound thing for us to remember as we journey on our lives. And then the second text that Tammy read is one that I just chose for today's sermon. And I wanted to just read the last verse of it myself, which says, good people produce goodness they've stored up in their hearts. Evil people produce evil from the evil they've stored up in their hearts. People speak from the fullness of their hearts. Those are the words of Christ. Okay, so today I want to talk about the heart. I want to speak to you about my ongoing epiphany about living a heart-centered life. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that, and also share a little bit about how the ancient mystics and contemplatives thought about the heart and how that might apply to us today. And there's a lot to cover, and I'm going to go quickly. But if by the end you feel inspired by this idea of living a more heart-centered life and you want to learn more, I have included some helpful links in the worship guide there under sermon resources. So if you feel a need to nerd out about living a heart-centered life, that's your spot I've compiled for you. But isn't it so funny, you guys, how you decide what you're going to write your sermon about, which is like this very long, drawn out, slow going, gradually epiphany that I've been having for some years about living a heart-centered life. Like a heart-centered life, not a brain-centered life, not an ego-centered life, not a trauma-centered life, but not a doing-centered life, but a being-centered life. Yeah. A heart-centered life. And then, of course, the minute you make that decision, the universe conspires to challenge that commitment. So this week, I worked with tons of normal life stuff that challenges me in living a heart-centered life. I dealt this week with the whole disappointment versus contentment spectrum, the resistance versus acceptance spectrum, with the giving versus receiving spectrum, the doing and being, with all kinds of duality spectrums that challenge me in my practice of living a heart-centered life. Not to mention, dealt with anxiety. Anxiety is a whole mind trap, you guys. It tethers us to these streams of thoughty, thinky thoughts that stem from the ego's fear-based mentality. Anxiety will pull us out of our hearts quicker than anything else. So I want to say to us all, with a big breath, and inviting you all into a big breath with me, that
living in the 2022 Western industrialized, post-religious, capitalist, political dumpster fire, 2-year-long pandemic world is a freaking crazy lot. And if we are people who are trying to live a heart-centered life, there's a paradox that's happening for us. And that is that every challenge possible is coming our way and testing our conviction and practice, okay? And that living a heart-centered life in these times is the only way forward for love-based spiritual people. We have an option now to shut our hearts down. And I'm saying, if we do that, we're doomed. The world ego will have won. When the people who value love and compassion and service and divine connection shut their hearts down and give in to cynicism and hopelessness, this pandemic has won, and we will have been tested and found lacking. And that is our challenge here in this moment, at this point on our journey. So I just want to scoot over here and check. Is everything, can you give me a thumbs up? Everything's well, Aurelia? I'm having like some, okay, great, thanks. A little reassurance with StreamYard. Okay, so I only learned anything about heart-centered living in my adult spiritual seeking. As many of you will know, the tradition that I grew up in did not teach me how to do this, or that it was even possible. And I had to go outside of my tradition to learn tenets for heart-centered living. I went to yoga, I went to the Vedic traditions, to mysticism and Sufism and Buddhism and on. And it's so interesting because once you are attuned to recognize it, you realize that the Christian tradition is full of wisdom about living from the heart. So if all you took away from your Christian upbringing was the heart is deceitful above all things, please know there is so much more than that. The ancients who practiced precursors to the Christianity that we now know had a really strong sense of the heart as being the seat of wisdom and understanding within a person, the place where the true self dwells, the place in the human being that is naturally connected to God, the dwelling place of the essence of the Imago Dei. There's even like an entire Christian mystical and monastic tradition. There are many. There's one in particular that's dedicated to heart-centered devotion, and it's called Hessicasm. The Heessicasts came out of Eastern Orthodox lineage of Christianity, and they have some beautiful and brilliant insights into this way of being. Likewise, the Sufi tradition, which is a mystical lineage that comes out of Islam, believes that the heart is the throne of God. So your homework, if you choose to accept it, is to read about the Heessicasts and the Sufis in the resource section of the guide. So we just heard a selection from Luke 6, which is Luke's account of the Sermon on the Mount, which is, in my opinion, the absolute pinnacle of the scriptural record and Christ's most clear articulation of his message. So in this text, I hear the Christ articulating what it looks like in practical terms to live a heart-centered life connected to God and centered in our true selves, which are made of love, right? Love your enemies, do good, be compassionate, give freely, don't judge. And I don't think that we can do any of the stuff that Jesus is encouraging us to do in Luke 6 unless we are living from the heart. I think the ego is incapable of loving an enemy. The ego has no access to unrewarded generosity and compassion. The ego's MO is judgment. So in transcending the ego, we learn to live from the heart. The prophet Ezekiel recounts God as saying, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. We can't live like Jesus unless we learn to access our heart, unless we dust off our hearts and get ourselves a heart of flesh and not of stone. So in the biblical text, the heart is a strong theme. It's considered to be the seat of life and strength. Just as we today biologically consider the heart to be the center of the body because all blood vessels lead to it and go forth from it. In ancient cultures of many kinds, particularly the tradition from which the modern day Bible came, okay, the Judaic tradition, the heart is the center of the spiritual and emotional self. We might even say that the heart is the mediator between the spiritual and the physical. It's the place where metanoia happens. You may have heard this word if you hang out with many Christians for very long. Metanoia is a Greek word that means that we shift from ego consciousness to ego transcendence. The literal translation of that word is beyond thought, as in we move beyond a rational thought-based way and into a heart-based ego transcendent way of being. We move from the head to the heart. Yeah. So the mind is the seat of ego and rational thought, but the heart is the seat of deeper spiritual knowledge that goes beyond thought. As the Christ said once to a bunch of haters whose inner motivations he had picked up on, why are you thinking these things in your heart? And he has this understanding of the heart as a place that houses our deepest motivations and innermost desires. From the author of Proverbs, we receive this idea that everything we do flows from the heart. Quote, as water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart. And for this reason, knowing that our hearts are absolutely crucial to how we live in the world, the psalmist prays that God will create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. We learn from the ancients that God looks past appearances and sees the human heart. And Christ does this too. According to the Gospels, he is very able to discern the thoughts and motives of people's hearts with laser clarity. Jesus sees people in their inmost being. He says that the most important thing in life is that we love God with all our heart, soul, and mind. Blessed are the pure in heart, says Christ in Matthew's account of the Sermon on the Mount, for they shall see God. So implied there is a need for us to wake up to the responsibility of guarding our hearts, because everything we do flows from it, right? From Proverbs. That we need to be in the habit of heart maintenance, periodic deep cleaning of the heart, just like we periodically clean our car windshields so that we can see to drive properly. We must regularly assess whether our heart's channel to God is clear, or if it's clouded by dust, which is what the scriptures call evil, that might interfere with our clear vision from the driver's seat of our lives, which I'm proposing should be our hearts. In the Vedic traditions, the heart chakra is thought to be the central energy locus of the body. It bridges the energy centers that govern the body and our inward lives with those that govern our spiritual selves and our outward lives. It's the mediator, again, between the physical and the spiritual, a portal between them. So having a strong heart chakra in that tradition is thought to be essential for physical, emotional, and spiritual health. So it's true that modern Western civilized life just doesn't give much attention to the spiritual heart. In fact, most of us go our whole lives without ever realizing our hearts are anything more than dumb clocks ticking away our time on earth. But despite however the traditions that raised us may have worshipped the logic and reason of the mind at the expense of the heart, we can wake up to the deeper wisdom access point that we have in the heart. And there are so many teachers, both within Christianity and outside of it, that we can learn from. So I've shared with you, and we heard from the text, some of Jesus's musings on how to live a heart-centered life. But since this is my epiphany and I'm preaching here, I'd like to share some of mine. And my own epiphany is that the heart is an amazing piece of spiritual technology that we're only beginning to learn how to use. It's as though we've got a whole console full of functions as yet we have only turned on a few. And the physical heart that beats in our chests is, of course, a beautiful evolutionary biological technology. But I'm learning to regard the physical heart as a placeholder for the spiritual heart. What would it be like if we all learned to live with fully turned on hearts? If we all became aware of the heartness of our hearts and learned to live from that space? When we live from the heart, we become less reliant on rational understanding of life. We have a greater access to compassion and forgiveness, those things that Jesus is encouraging us towards in Luke 6. And we have more capacity to live in the eternal now. The true heart lives in the now. It lives in abundance and in goodness and in godness. The heart is the pathway to our truest selves, our imago Dei, the true self which is hidden with Christ in God, as St. Paul puts it. The heart is the place we go to connect with our own inner wisdom and beauty. And the heart can, if we let it, keep us connected both to mindful embodiment and presence here in the now, on this planet, with these people in this physical location, and to our divine nature, our higher wisdom self that dwells in eternity with God in love. We can learn to be in our hearts while we are doing our work in the world, the work of liberation and healing and repair, of generosity and compassion, as well as the menial, mundane work we all do every day, like folding laundry and doing dishes, etc. But I don't think we can do this work of liberation, healing, repair, compassion, generosity without being in our hearts. I think our hearts are absolutely crucial to us discovering and living out our purpose here on earth. When we shut down our hearts, we lose access to our innate wisdom and goodness. So how do we know we've gone out of our hearts? Well, one way is we get caught up in fear. We get preoccupied with scarcity. When thoughts that say, not enough, never enough, are looping in our minds, then it's pretty sure that we've left the heart behind. When we behave out of fear, that's not to say we won't feel fear, but when we start to behave from a place of fear, we have left the heart behind. When we've gone out of our hearts, we get obsessed about fairness rather than about justice. When we've gone out of our hearts, we lose sight of our own needs for rest and connection and healing. Some of the most heart-centered work we will do in this life is attend to our own healing. The heart knows that each person's personal healing work benefits the whole world. When Jesus is asked in Luke 17, where's the kingdom of God and when will it come? He says, we shouldn't be looking here or there for it because the kingdom of God is within you. Those are the words of Christ. I spent my whole youth hearing the refrain that I needed to ask Jesus into my heart so that Jesus could save me and bring me to heaven with him. And guess what? They were right. I need to drop down into my heart and discover that heaven is already right here within me. This vast plane of existence in which I can choose to live right here, right now. And I am so grateful to Jesus for pointing the way to my heart all these years. When I'm centered in my heart, it seems to be when I am most centered in God, and somewhat unexpectedly, it's when I'm most aware of my connection to other people and to all that is. I've been reading Martin Laird on the advice of a friend, and Laird describes it this way. He says, a helpful image to express this sort of thing is a wheel with spokes centered on a single hub. The hub of the wheel is God, and we are the spokes. Out on the rim of the wheel, the spokes are furthest from one another, but at the center, the hub, The spokes are most united to each other. They are a single meeting in the one hub. The image was used in the early church to say something important about that level of life at which we are one with each other and one with God. And the more we journey towards the center, the closer we are both to God and to each other. The problem, Laird says, of feeling isolated from both God and others is overcome in the experience of the center. This journey into God and the profound meeting of others in the inner ground of silence is a single movement. Exterior isolation, he says, is overcome in interior communion. So when we can learn to live primarily from this interior plane of the heart, we will begin to understand the spaciousness of our own being and the immediacy of God. Augustine wrote, "Late have I loved you, O beauty ever ancient. You were within me, but I was outside, and it was there that I searched for you. In my unloveliness, I plunged into the lovely things which you created. You were within me, but I was not with you." Augustine laments that we search the whole creative world outside looking for God, don't we? We search the internet and the library and the Netflix and the relationships, and we stare at our phones hoping to feel connected, when all along God is right here within us, and the pathway to that knowing is through the inner door of our own hearts. God was with us all along. We were just not present in our hearts to notice. Living a heart-centered life will challenge us endlessly. We will be constantly confronted with opportunities to close and harden our hearts. And just as we have the power to give consent to the world ego, to have our soft hearts hardened to stone, we have on the flip side power to give our consent to God to have a new heart. And my prayer for us is that we are people who give this consent to receive these soft, fleshy, feely, intuitive, joyful, beating hearts and all the wisdom that is available to us here at the heart of ourselves. Amen.
All right. Litany for Analog Hearts. O Christ, how you challenge us, not only to become spiritual, but to become holy, truly, and fully human. By your shining example, you demonstrated that to be fully human is to merge body, ego, and soul into one being, with one broad purpose, to embody love. You did this with such success that the world is still talking about you and interacting with your presence. This means that our capacity is expansive, to drop down out of the worldly concerns of the ego into the center of ourselves, into our hearts. The place you most avidly reach us, the bridge between heaven and earth. We acknowledge that coming out of the ego and into the heart takes a lot of humility. We acknowledge that we've been trained to dwell only inside the mind, to leave body, soul, and heart behind. We acknowledge that to retrain ourselves will take a lot of practice. We acknowledge that to resist all this distraction will take great discipline. We acknowledge that our task is integration of the heart into the ego, of the body into the soul, of the one into the whole. We give thanks for this miracle of experience, for these old school analog hearts. Every squeeze and thump holy, every beat a glory, in service to our soul's purpose, to make your love known. Amen.
Thank you so much, Joel, for reading. Can y'all hear me? I'm also second guessing myself. All right, I'm gonna read a quick benediction for you all. My dad actually sent me this morning. I asked him if he could send me a prayer that he enjoyed, and he did. And so this is just a very quick benediction to send you out. This is by Frederick Buechner, and it's also a little bit modified. Go now and serve God, doing things that God needs you to do. Singing songs for God, creating beautiful things for God, giving things up for God, telling God what's on your mind and in your heart, rejoicing in God, and making a fool of yourself for God, the way lovers have always made fools of themselves for the one they love. Amen. We'll see y'all next week in person and online. Thanks, everyone.